just seconds, an ordinary family drive would turn into a scene that would shatter multiple lives forever. A 22-year-old woman named Crystal Williams, her mother, and her teenage brother were leaving an apartment complex in Dunwoody, Georgia, when a man who refused to let go made a deadly decision. At approximately 10:30 p.m. on September 6, 2020, emergency calls flooded in. Gunfire, screams, chaos near the entrance of the Dunwoody Glen apartments. When help arrived, what they found was devastating. A young woman dead, a mother gravely wounded, a teenager fighting to survive, and a child trapped inside a moment they would never forget. Just minutes earlier, Crystal had been sitting in a car with the people she trusted most. She wasn't planning her future. She was trying to escape a relationship that had become unbearable. And that choice changed everything. Before we begin, if you care about uncovering the truth behind real crimes and learning lessons that can save lives, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel exists to make sure these victims are remembered and that their stories might protect someone else. Now, let's begin. This story will make you understand why a mother stepped in front of violence and why survival carries its own burden. But first, you need to know who Crystal Williams was. Before control took over and before her life was stolen for choosing freedom, Crystal Williams was 22 years old, an age where life feels wide open and tomorrow still feels guaranteed. To the people who loved her, Crystal wasn't just young. She was energy. She was laughter. She was the person who could change the mood in a room without trying. Her younger brother Malachi called her the funny one. Others called her the life of everything. Within her family, Crystal was a light, the one who made hard days feel lighter just by being present. She lived at the Dunwoody Glen Apartments in Dunwoody, Georgia. On the outside, her life looked steady. She had a home. She had people who cared deeply about her. She wasn't isolated or alone. And that's what makes this story so difficult to understand at first glance. Crystal came from a close-knit family that showed up for one another. Her mother, Danielle Sims, was a protector in the truest sense, firm, loving, and fiercely devoted to her children. At 46, Danielle was the kind of mother who didn't just say she protected her kids. She lived it. Her stepfather, Abinalaram Sims, adored Crystal. He called her Princess, a name that reflected how deeply she was valued in their home. And then there was Malachi, just 18 years old, a senior in high school, and someone who looked up to his big sister with admiration. Crystal wasn't just a sibling. She was his guide. From the outside, Crystal had what many people believe is a solution to abuse: support, love, and a place to go. So why couldn't she leave? This is where the truth becomes uncomfortable. Abusive relationships don't rely on physical force alone. They rely on psychological chains, trauma bonding, cycles of affection followed by fear, moments of warmth followed by control. Over time, the brain learns to associate relief with the same person causing the pain. Research shows victims attempt to leave multiple times, often around 7, before separating for good. Each failed attempt makes the grip tighter. The fear grows. Confidence fades. What forms isn't weakness. It's an invisible psychological prison. Malachi would later say something that still echoes through this case. Crystal had tried to leave before, but she could not successfully separate from Justin Turner. And that single word, could not, changes everything. Because to understand how a vibrant 22-year-old woman with a loving family behind her became trapped, we have to understand the man who built that cage around her. Justin Dion Turner was 23 years old. On paper, the relationship looked new. He had been living with Crystal for only about 2 months. But time isn't what defines control. Intensity does. September 6, 2020 began without alarms. Justin Turner spent the day at the Sims family home in Lawrenceville. It was a normal visit. Conversation, familiar faces, nothing openly hostile. To anyone watching, it looked calm, ordinary, safe. As evening settled in, it was time to head back. Crystal and Justin needed a ride to their apartment in Dunwoody, and Danielle Sims offered to drive them herself. Before leaving, she made a quick phone call to her husband. "I'm getting ready to drop them off, and I'll be home." Inside Danielle's SUV were 5 people. Danielle behind the wheel, Crystal beside her, Justin in the vehicle, Malachi in the back, and a young child. At first, it was just a drive. Street lights, familiar roads, silence that felt manageable. That didn't last. An argument started inside the car. Words turned sharp. Tension filled the space between seats. And in that moment, Crystal made a decision that changed everything. She said she didn't want to stay with Justin. She wanted to go home with her mother. This was the moment control slipped. For someone who relies on dominance, rejection isn't just emotional, it's threatening. The idea becomes simple and dangerous. If I can't have you, no one will. When a victim asserts independence, rage can replace restraint. This is why separation is the most lethal point in abusive relationships. Around 10:30 p.m., the SUV exited the Dunwoody Glen apartments, heading toward Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. Without warning, another car cut them off. It was Justin. He had left the vehicle, gotten into his own car, and followed them. Malachi would later describe it clearly. "Out of nowhere, Justin cuts us off." Justin stepped out, holding a handgun. Everything froze. A mother saw a gun aimed toward her children. No time to think. No chance to run. Just instinct. Danielle Sims moved. She placed her body between danger and her kids. 8 shots rang out in rapid succession. Bullets tore through the vehicle. Malachi later said she wasn't kidding when she said she'd die for her children. Crystal was hit and died at the scene. She was 22 years old. Danielle was critically wounded and rushed to Grady Memorial Hospital. Doctors fought to save her, but she died later that night. Malachi was shot in the arm and taken to Atlanta Medical Center. He survived, but his injuries required multiple surgeries. The young child in the vehicle was not physically injured, though the trauma would not fade. Justin Turner fled immediately. What happens in the next 30 seconds will demonstrate the ultimate act of maternal love and expose the brutal reality of domestic violence. If this story is affecting you, leave a comment sharing your thoughts. If someone in your life needs to hear this, share this video. Your engagement helps this message reach people who may need it most. Now back to that night. As Crystal lay dead, as her mother fought for breath, and as sirens cut through the Georgia darkness, one question took over everything. Where was Justin Turner? Around 10:30 p.m., emergency lines lit up. Multiple callers reported gunfire near the entrance of the Dunwoody Glen apartments. Within minutes, officers from the Dunwoody Police Department arrived to a scene that no amount of training can ever make routine. Crystal Williams lay dead near the apartment entrance. Her mother and brother were bleeding inside the vehicle. A young child sat frozen in shock. 8 shell casings were scattered across the pavement. The shooter was gone. As paramedics rushed the wounded to nearby hospitals, law enforcement moved quickly. This was no mystery shooting. Witnesses were clear. The suspect was known. Justin Dion Turner had fled the scene, leaving behind devastation and unanswered questions. An immediate manhunt was launched. Investigators gathered statements, secured evidence, and alerted surrounding agencies. Turner's name and description spread across the Atlanta metropolitan area. Patrol units coordinated across city lines, watching highways, neighborhoods, and known locations connected to him. The clock was ticking. Less than 24 hours later, on September 7, 2020, Turner was located in Atlanta. He was taken into custody without resistance and transported for questioning. While one family sat in hospitals and waiting rooms, detectives worked through the night, piecing together the timeline and preparing charges that reflected the scale of what had been taken. Those charges were severe. Justin Turner was formally charged with 2 counts of murder for the deaths of Crystal Williams and Danielle Sims. He also faced aggravated assault for shooting Malachi Williams and an additional charge for possession of a firearm during the commission of felony. A judge denied bond. Turner was held at the DeKalb County Jail. Justice, at least on paper, moved swiftly, but the legal process doesn't heal wounds. Public information about the final outcome of the case remains limited, something that often happens while cases move slowly through the court system. What is known is the weight of the charges Turner faced. In Georgia, 2 murder convictions can carry life imprisonment or the death penalty. While courts take their time, families live with the damage every single day. Malachi survived, and survival came with questions no teenager should ever have to ask. Why him? Why not his mother? Why not his sister? Ebionolarum Sims returned to a house that no longer felt like home. The last phone call replayed endlessly, a promise to return that was never kept. And a young child witnessed violence their mind was never meant to hold. For this family, the pain wasn't new. Asia Green, Danielle's sister, revealed that gun violence had already taken a life in their family years earlier. "We already did this before," she said, words heavy with exhaustion and grief. Turner was in custody, but justice for those left behind had only just begun. Malachi Williams woke up in a hospital room with his arm bandaged and his life split in two. He had survived surgery. Doctors focused on healing bone and muscle, but no one could touch the damage inside his chest. In one night, Malachi lost his mother and his sister, the 2 people who had shaped his sense of safety in the world. At 18 years old, he was forced into a reality most people never face. From that hospital bed, Malachi spoke words that carry both pain and honesty. "I'm angry and sad. It's immense anger and sadness. I'll never forgive him, ever in my life. Surviving something like this doesn't feel like luck. For many, it feels like punishment." While Malachi lay in recovery, Ebionolarum Sims was at work, unaware that his family had already been torn apart. His last interaction with his wife was a short phone call, one that repeats endlessly in his mind. She said, "I'm getting ready to drop them off and I'll be home." And she never came home. In one phone call from police, his world collapsed. The woman he loved was gone. The stepdaughter he called Princess was gone. The house they shared became unbearably quiet. Grief didn't arrive gently. It took over everything. The pain extended far beyond the immediate family. Danielle's sister, Sharice Calfani, struggled to make sense of it all. "This is silly. This is insane. It's something that should have never happened," she said, voicing the disbelief so many families feel after sudden violence. Another sister, Asia Green, revealed a deeper wound. This was not the first time gun violence had devastated their family. Years earlier, her brother had also been killed. Loss had returned, again, to the same bloodline. Violence doesn't stop with one victim. It spreads through siblings, parents, children, and entire communities that carry the weight long after headlines fade. If you're feeling the weight of this story, you're not alone. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on how we can better support victims of domestic violence. And if this story has opened your eyes to the reality of intimate partner violence, hit the like button. It helps this message reach people who truly need to hear it. 9 days after the shooting, as the sun lowered into the evening sky on September 15th, 2020, people began to gather outside the Doherty Glen apartments. This was the same place where Crystal Williams lost her life. The same place where Danielle Sims made a final stand as a mother. Nearly 100 people came together, family members, friends, neighbors, and strangers who felt shaken by what had happened in their community. Candles flickered in their hands as names were spoken aloud. Tears were shared openly. Silence carried more weight than words ever could. This vigil wasn't only about mourning. It was about recognition. Crystal and Daniel were honored not as headlines, but as people, a 22-year-old woman full of life and a 46-year-old mother whose love knew no limits. Their deaths were acknowledged for what they were, preventable, devastating, and deeply personal. Among those who spoke was Crystal's cousin, Quan Green. Her message was clear, direct, and urgent, especially for young women listening. "I want to encourage you to get out of the relationship if a man or a woman is abusing you or talking down to you," she said. "That is not love, and you need to know that. You need to know to love yourself first and foremost. Her words weren't rehearsed. They came from grief, fear, and a desire to stop history from repeating itself. But leaving sounds simple from the outside. It isn't. Research shows victims are up to 70 times more likely to be killed in the weeks after leaving an abusive relationship. That's why walking away without a plan can increase risk. Safety planning matters. Professionals matter. Hotlines, shelters, counselors, and advocates understand how to navigate these moments with care and strategy. If you or someone you know needs help, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. Calls are confidential and free. They help create exit plans, identify safe steps, and connect people to local resources. Helping someone doesn't mean forcing decisions. It means listening without judgment, offering support without pressure, believing them. Crystal never saw her 23rd birthday, never reached milestones she deserved, love, family, growing older. Danielle never got to watch her children step fully into adulthood. Malachi survived, and survival is not the end of the story. It's a long road of healing, physical recovery mixed with emotional weight. He carries a memory of his mother's courage in the absence of his sister every single day. That kind of loss doesn't fade. It reshapes life. What this story teaches us matters. Domestic violence is not rare. It's widespread. The most dangerous moment is when someone tries to leave. Victims don't need judgment. They need support. Why didn't she leave is a wrong question. Love should never control, threaten, or reduce you. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. As a society, we have work to do. Stronger protections, more shelters, real education about healthy relationships, and accountability before lives are taken. We must listen when victims speak. So ask yourself, do you know someone who might be trapped? Have you overlooked warning signs? Could your support change an outcome? Crystal tried to leave. Her mother tried to save her. Malachi survived to carry their story. Now it's on all of us to make sure their deaths were not meaningless. This isn't just about September 6, 2020. It's about what's happening right now, maybe closer than you think. If the story impacted you, here's what you can do. Hit the like button so this message reaches more people. Subscribe to True Crime Discovery so these stories continue to be told with care. Share this video. It could save a life. And leave a comment. What's one lesson you'll carry forward from Crystal's story? This has been the story of Crystal Williams and Danielle Sims, two women who deserve so much more. May their memory be a blessing, and may their story be a warning. This is True Crime Discoveries. Stay safe out there and watch out for the next video.